Hey everyone, welcome to the Tom's Hardware Podcast for December 7th already, 2021. I'll give folks a couple minutes to come in. As always, we're taking your questions live in the chat room on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're joining us. Hello, Russell, who is posted. As always, I'm Tom's Hardware Editor-in-Chief, Avram Pilch, joined by Associate Editor Les Pounder, Raspberry Pi expert Ash Hill, and today's special guest, Phil from Pimoroni. How are you doing,
Hello.
Phil?
I'm all right, actually. It's suddenly gone very warm in this office, despite being freezing cold all day. So it's clearly the pressure of broadcast.
How are you guys? How are you guys doing with the rush of orders? I mean, you must have had a real crush with holiday season and especially Cyber Week last week.
I don't actually know. My finger's well off the button with that because I'm based about 150 miles south of the office, so I don't get an eye on all of the chaos anymore. It was back when we used to launch new Raspberry Pis. That would be when the real crunch was. But we're getting to the point now where we've got enough people to be quite good at pushing through the rush. And the shop team is super efficient anyway. So
yeah, I mean, always very efficient when I order something from Pimoroni. So I understand that there is a new Pimoroni board coming out. It's not out yet, right? I didn't see it on the site.
I think it's imminent. I'm not sure if it's today or sometime later this week, but it's very imminent. Hopefully not today because I've got to publish the software. But yes, it is. This is always the case. Software gets done quicker as soon as something's released. It's a kind of on demand. So it's the Interstate 75, which if I can bring this contraption over here. Of course, I want to be able to focus on it. It's an RP2040 based Hub 75 panel driver that just plugs quite neatly into the back of the panel here. I'll pull it out and horribly break my panel. So it's got the Hub 75 connector on the back. It's got a little notch, and in it goes. Oh.
That's cool. Phil, so if anyone's not aware of what Hub 75 is, can you explain what it is?
I was actually quite new to Hub 75 myself. So it is effectively like a row scanned matrix driver protocol that uses an obscene amount of shift registers to kind of turn the problem of driving a bunch of pixels into just the problem of shifting out enough data.
Yeah.
So it works in. You're probably familiar with like smart LEDs, like the APA 102s or the NeoPixels or what are the other ones? Dot stars. That's what they call them.
Yeah.
And they tend to work by being wired together as a single chain of LEDs that are all smart. Each have their own individual driver in. Whereas the Hub 75 panels, they have drivers on the back, which is the ridiculous number of shift registers I was talking about. Excuse my upcycled kickstand. It's a ridiculous number of shift registers, and basically they are driving each LED not independently, but in batches of 2 rows. So there will be this row and this row lighting up at any one time. This row and this row, then this row and this row, and so on and so forth, scanning down the display, and that effectively allows you to drive this obscenely complicated display with just a shift register style shifting out of data. So it uses 6 pins for the red, green, blue channels because it's driving two rows at the same time. So 2 rows of red, green, and blue individual LED elements. And then it has 5 pins for the address. So each row of the panel is individually addressed. And effectively what it will do is it will shift out an entire row of data, which in this case will be 3 or 6 times, 64 bits. And then it will assert the address to select the specific row, and then it will latch the data out and it will pulse that row momentarily. So what you're actually seeing here, This is working so fast that even the camera can't pick it up. But if I fiddle about with the shutter speed a little bit, keep fiddling. There we go. You'll just find that I roll into the rolling shutter kind of speed, and you'll start to see the individual rows light up one at a time. So it's exploiting the persistence of vision effect, basically, to make it look like the entire panel is lit up when only one row is being lit up individually. And the RP2040 is actually uniquely well suited to this task, which you may know from the PIO, the programmable kind of like custom hardware, effectively. Rather than have an I2C front end or an SPI front end, you've got PIO, which has a very small instruction memory and a very small set of instructions that lets you basically tell it to be a certain kind of device driver. And in this case, it's just taking the raw red, green, and blue data in 10-bit, and then it's picking one bit from it and sending that bit out to the shift register, and then throwing away all the other bits, picking the next bit, throwing all the way away all the other bits. And to actually get varying levels of brightness for varying color channels, i.e. to allow red to have multiple levels of intensity, each bit that it shifts out has a certain timing weight. So they're all, what would you call them, an order of magnitude separate from each other. So you shift out bit 1 of red, you light up the row for 1 nanosecond, for example. Then you shift out bit 2, you light up the row for 2 nanoseconds. Bit 4, you light it up for 4 nanoseconds. This is why I say it's new to me, because I had to figure this stuff out. I had to sit down and write it all out in C, and basically go back to brass tacks and basics to really get my head around how it all worked and how it all should work. But it was fun.
All of that complexity has been abstracted away now, hasn't it? Because you got your own MicroPython library.
We have, yes, shipped our own MicroPython library that basically has all of that tucked away. It uses the PIOs to drive the panel, and then it uses DMA, which is direct memory access, which takes a portion of memory and just throws it at the PIOs as fast as it possibly can. So you don't have to worry about any of the complexity of driving, any of the speed of driving. It will just hammer away. And all you have to do is draw something fancy into the buffer and say, my buffer's ready now. And it will update the display with that.
So will this work with, are you familiar with Adafruit has a feather hat.
I can't recall the name of it off the top of my head, but
yeah, I'm trying to. I have one in my drawer here somewhere, and it works quite well.
That's not LF. It's
and that works in Circuit Python, doing a similar thing. Although you have to buy both the feather and this add-on board to get the same effect. They have a combined
board, don't they?
Do they now have a combined board? Okay.
Yeah. It is the Matrix Portal M4.
Matrix M4. Portal, that's the one. Yeah.
Yes, Matrix. Okay.
So yeah, that's got an ESP32 on board. The one thing that we don't have on Interstate 75 is an ESP32. So this doesn't do any wireless connectivity at all.
Right.
Which is, I suppose, a weak point, but it keeps the price down, and also it's just fun to do something with the RP2040. That's the groove we're in at the moment.
It could be added, couldn't it?
You can, in fact, add it by adding another RP2040 driving an ESP32 backpack, which is something that I did experimentally, and it works. You can just have your other RP2 with the back. Thing sitting over here somewhere. Or at least I did. There we go. No, that's not it. I've got too many boards that look too similar to go searching for anything, but basically I had... Oh, it's behind me. Basically, I had this little fellow, and I'd wired it by a single UART across to Interstate 76, and I just had this running the cheer lights code, and then instead of displaying cheer lights on LEDs or the onboard LED, it just squirted the RGB data over UART, picked it up on the Hub 75, and displayed it on the screen. So you can go the maximal over-engineering route and add a whole nother RP2040 and an ESP32 to get wireless connectivity if you're so inclined.
Excellent.
So will this support daisy chaining of Hub 75? Because I know a lot of the competitors do up to 4.
one that I prepared earlier, chugging away in the background, which has 2 panels. It seems to work well for up to 4, and then you start to hit the limits of what the RP2040 can actually accomplish. And I'm looking into ways to skirt around those limits if I can possibly help it. But yeah, it will support like a configuration of 4 panels of 64 by 64, which gives you a 128 by 128 square, or more likely than not, it would give you a 256 by 64 kind of text scrolling banner.
Yeah, I have great ambitions of taking all mine and putting them together, but I have to find the right hooks, like literally 3D printed or something to hook them all together.
3D printed me some little plastic bits that kind of work. These little shims.
So you use
but
those
they're a little bit on the flexible side. Actually, not too bad. But yeah, those are what are holding this together. Although I've stacked a couple of them.
Oh, cool.
So
what are those?
Strong enough to hold 2 of them together, but they're a little bit tight towards the back, so the panels are a little bit spread out at the front. But it's better than nothing. I previously was using twist ties to hold them together, which weren't very effective, as you might imagine.
I've got screws and elastic bands on mine right now.
Yeah, I gotta.
The same approach, isn't it?
I got to figure that out because I really want, and I've wanted this for over years. So people who've watched the show are probably like, why didn't you do it yet? To put one actually right behind me over here and have it flash some information like the comments people are giving on the panel while we're doing the show. I thought would be cool. Not as cool as having that. I think that's a llama behind you, but
that's one of those fake neon lights that basically just runs a very thin LED strip through some foam or rubber. It's very, very convincing, though. I love it.
Yes. So that's really amazing. What type of power does it work off of? Just regular USB-C, or do you need external power?
The beauty of these panels is that you're only ever lighting one row at a time. So they don't actually use all that much power. I mean, the one in the background there, I think I benchmarked at about 500 milliamps peak, or maybe an amp peak for the 2 panels. And then this one is something like 300 or even less, maybe. But I'm not driving them particularly hard as well. It does depend an awful lot how hard you drive the LEDs, how long you turn them on for. So these are refreshing just so quickly that A, the LEDs are never on for very long at all, and B, there's only ever 2 rows, I should say, on at any one time. So yeah, this is running from USB-C from my dock. Although Sandy, our photographer, did have some trouble with running it from his shonky USB hub. So he did have brownouts when he tried to light it up all white and things like that.
Right. Yeah. So you were just able to, so you could get 4 panels off of a single USB-C connection?
If you have a very good USB-C hub, potentially, yes. But once you get up to the scale of 4 panels, we have a... because we have the power distribution screw terminals on the back here, for example, it is very trivial to just take one of these barrel jack adapters and just stick it on and use a 5-volt AC adapter. And the one I've got behind me is running from a 5-volt 2-amp adapter, which is overkill.
Because I know, having used some of the Adafruit solutions, the Adafruit hat for regular Raspberry Pi, and then the Feather Matrix, I would, you usually needed you need an AC adapter because if you're
we did that with 12-volt panels, I think they were, and we created this monster display panel that we could play Pico games on with one of Adafruit's hats, I think it was.
Yeah.
That was good fun.
That's always fun. So using these Hub 75 things is a blast, and having the ability to just have it all on one piece is definitely a nice improvement over having to buy feather wings or hats or other accessories. And probably it benefits from not having the overhead of running on something like a Raspberry Pi, where you'd have the whole operating system running.
It certainly has power benefits. Yeah, it makes it much easier to run, as you say, off a single USB-C connector. And it also makes it plug and play. I mean, think how long a Raspberry Pi takes to boot, and then look at this that I just plug in, and it's away.
Yeah, That's
basically as quickly as I can plug it in.
That is pretty slick.
Have you tried programming anything like games on it or any kind of interactive stuff, or is it just mostly
I have considered
animation?
it, but I haven't delved into that rabbit hole yet. I've got obviously a lot of relatively recent games tinkering experience. I feel if I started writing games for this, people with the Pico system would look at me and go, "What are you doing over there writing games for that when you should be writing games?"
What would you recommend if one wanted to try to make games for an LED hub in Python or MicroPython? Because Pygame library requires an actual screen. So what? And obviously that doesn't run on an RP2040. So if one wanted to actually try to create a game, is there a good way to do it?
I don't think there's a really good graphics library out there to do it. The beauty of CircuitPython on here and using CircuitPython's library, albeit it's a little bit slower and tends to run in a lower color depth to actually handle clocking out the data, because CircuitPython's Hub 75 library is generic, has to work on lots of different boards, doesn't have the same PIO optimizations this does. The beauty of using their library is that you can use something like I've forgotten what it's called now, Ugame, for example, and actually run those games straight on this panel with basically no modifications. So that would be an option. I would just go from brass tacks for this kind of thing, and I would keep my ambitions small, look to games that are pixel based, maybe 64 by 64 and abstract graphics. Don't get too carried away.
My son and I had, and we still have ambition to finish this maybe over the holiday break. A great project that I showed a while back using a Unicorn HD hat, where we had used the Unicorn HD library to make a Mario like game or a platformer where you could go and jump, and like your character was like 3 pixels tall, and the little monsters were like 1 pixel or whatever. But we had to have it kind of output the score part or something to a screen, because we were using the Pygame library on a Raspberry Pi. And then when we wanted to go and sort of make it run on a Hub 75 panel that was a different resolution, that was like 64 by 32 or something, we had a hard time translating the game, and we kind of got stuck. So
you have to write with that kind of thing in mind, I think, when you're designing games. We had some problems with the games that were written originally for 32-bit being ported to Pico system, going from a 320 by 240 to a 240 by 240 screen, and suddenly some of the expectations you have in your level design and in how your game looks and plays out are completely smashed when you realize people are taking leaps of faith off the edge of platforms into blind chasms because they can't see the platform on the other side, now on a smaller screen.
So this is a very exciting time at Pimoroni. We know there's some other stuff coming out. There's a new robot coming out as well, right?
There is, in fact, a new robot which I've had basically nothing to do with, which is extraordinarily fortuitous in my case, because I'm spinning plates at this point. But yeah, Chris has been hard at work, basically championing the new robot. Sent out some samples to some key robot tinkery people in the community, getting good feedback, getting some cool things happening. But this is kind of the spiritual successor, I guess, to our STS Pi, which is our original robot rover, which was themed like a space shuttle because John likes space stuff.
Yeah, that's So this could be a very good week for folks to watch Pimoroni.com, because
is
there's
there ever not one?
No,
but week before payday, perhaps.
Yeah, but this could be a good week for folks, because there's some exciting new things going up. Les, you've had a chance to use this board, and what's your experience been like?
I've had a great afternoon messing around with this, and Phil can attest to this. I've been bugging him all afternoon on Slack. Great little board, really easy to put together. It just slots into the connection on the back. In fact, I'll go to the cam and you can see there it's running. And it plugs straight into a connection on the board.
How are yours connected together? How are your pieces held together?
As I said before, machine screws and elastic bands. You can see the elastic band just here behind that wire. There we go. It keeps them together just enough for the camera, and also I can put these legs on so it's raised up and you can see it all nice level. Otherwise, the wires go everywhere.
They really do.
Nice to put together. Literally, the Interstate 75 just plugs straight into connection on the board. It has a polarized connection as well, so you know to put it in just one way. You can't. You can if you really want to, but you will have some restrictions to put it in the wrong way.
Does it come pre-soldered, or do you solder the headers?
All pre-soldered, all ready to go. Literally just slap it straight on, put some code on, and away you go. And it's all MicroPython based for me today. Anyway, I've not dabbled with C yet. Phil, will there be any support for CircuitPython?
It already works in CircuitPython using their libraries, so that is basically it. Yeah.
So now with the portal, I'll just put on camera there, you can show images, small, is it GIFs or something like that, images you can put on screen. As long as it's within the right resolution, it just shows straight away. It's quite easy to do. So I've done a couple of projects with that. But anyway, I've got these two Hub 75 screens, which I picked up very cheaply many years ago, thinking I'll use them one day, and I have. Again, absolute total put together. Put the board on, put the power in, connect the power to your boards here, your Hub 75s, and away you go. And if you've got two, you've got your little cable to chain them together. And I've been messing around with Phony. Just put these back as they were. There we go. And you've probably seen me on Twitter messing around with my pet gremlin Stripe, showing pictures of him dancing on it. But I'm going to just load up Phony now. You can't see what I'm doing right now, so I've not loaded the Phony into OBS, unfortunately. But I'm going to show my quick little test that I always do. This is my disco program. So whenever I've got an RGB matrix or some sort of NeoPixel thing, I'll make just a random matrix light up. So this is all in about 36 lines of code, roughly. And it's gone through two demos. One where it just picks random colours for the dance floor light up, and another one where it sweeps colours across. Absolute doddle with their software. All I've got are some commands to say, right, pick random colours, X, Y, positions, random colours, RGB, and then I just say, right, set position X, position Y to the colour RGB. And then just flip the screen to refresh it, and then there you go. It works. Nice and simple. In the past, I've messed around with other methods of doing this. I think it was with C, actually, with an Arduino. And it was a little bit cumbersome for me. But this, great. Enjoyed it. But Phil, well, I've got you on here, mate. I noticed on the board, you've got a Quest connection, as Paul called it the other week.
We have embraced Quest, yes.
You're on a Quest.
Wholeheartedly. So
in case you don't know what Quest is, there you go. Quest is Quick or Stemma QT connection, both the same connection, really. Is there any support in the MicroPython library for that, or is it, do you have to bundle in Adafruit's extra libraries?
It will work with any of our modules that have drivers built in already. So I've taken our rotary encoder, for example, and just plugged that into the Quest connector. It'll give me a little encoder knob on the top of my panel that I can whiz around. And away you go.
Nice.
So yeah, anything that has a driver baked into our MicroPython release will work just straight out of the box.
Cool. What's the storage on this as well?
I can't remember, actually, off the top of my head. I think it's 4 megabytes.
So if it's...
or it might be 16.
So is there access to GPIO pins? Should you want to attach something to GPIO, or...
There is limited access, yeah. So if I can get it under the camera again, we have these pins across the top. So we usually have a breakout header. Obviously, there are a lot of pins being used to drive the panel. So we've cobbled together what we can, including debug pins there, the remaining analog pins, the I2C, which is, I believe, just the same as the Quest connector, and then just some power and ground for powering whatever you might want to connect up to it. So there's enough on there to, for example, connect UART, which I've done, and to connect debug and serial for when you're debugging as well. So
So how did you, for those who are not familiar with it, your rotary encoder is from the Breakout Garden. How did you take a Breakout Garden? Breakout Garden stuff is SPI or I2C. So how did you take that and get it to work with that board?
Well, the Quest stemmer stuff is basically I2C anyway. It just uses a custom cable and connector. So we've taken that cable and plugged it into one of our adapters. So we have like a Quest/stemmer to Breakout Garden adapter, and then that just plugs onto the Breakout Garden module, or rather the Breakout Garden module plugs into it. But we're actually installing these connectors on pretty much any new sensor that we design at this point. So we've got something in my very organized box of tricks that already have all those connectors on board. Oh, here we go. PME 688 has one on board. So here's an example of a sensor where we have fully embraced the connector, Breakout Garden connector on the bottom, Quest connector on the side, and I'm holding it by the wrong side. In fact, this isn't a BME 68, it's a ICP 10125. Don't know if we released that yet.
God, what's an ICP 10125 then, Phil?
That's a very good question. I cannot for the life of me remember. I think it is a very, very high accuracy pressure sensor, which is why it looks like it might be a very, very high accuracy pressure sensor when you look at it.
Yeah, you're right. I've just Googled it.
Hey!
Sandy mentions in the comments that it's 2 meg QSPI flash.
Okay, 2 meg QSPI. That makes sense.
Great. So, Les, you have some other boards that are on your bench this week. What else can we look forward to reading about?
I do indeed. I've got a plethora of boards, and I'm going to go to the overhead camera and put them on these wonderful platforms, which have been set up for the focus, which is good.
It's beautiful.
We have Adafruit's new KB2040 board.
Ooh.
So this is a Pico board, pretty much RP2040 designed. Let's just take it out the strobing lights. There we go. Designed just for making keyboards with, and this looks really fun to play with. We've got stemmer QT on the back, lots of pins to make our connections with, and obviously it's going to run CircuitPython. So that is going to be fun. I need to work out what keyboard I'm going to make because I've already got one of these. So what else can I add for keyboard shortcuts when I've got 16 keys already? I've also got a wonderful new board. Now, last week we had Overture on from Cytron, and this is Cytron's new board, the Maker Nano RP2040. Just checking I've got the right ones. I've got two that are very similar from them. So it looks really nice. Again, I'm using the word really quite a lot today. Here we go. Stemmer QT on the bottom, which was mentioned last week. All the Gpio pins have got LEDs on, so you can see which one's in use. It's great for debugging and also for use in the classroom. We've got the obligatory buzzer and 2 NeoPixels built in, ready to go. So that's on my board for testing. And the reason why I said I've got 2 that look similar, I have this one. This is an Arduino. This is the Maker Nano from Cytron again, and it's pretty much the same feature set as the RP2040 model. There's no NeoPixels on it, but we have buzzers, lights, and it is just a nice little nano board. And I think it's about $10, which is good when you want a quality Arduino clone, because an Arduino itself can retail for about $30.
Wow. And we won't get into this now because we're running short on time, but I know, Les, you're working on a really exciting project that we had discussed, which is an RP2040 Clapper.
Yep. There we go. I have the guts of it right here. So that's a sensor I got from AliExpress about 1 million years ago, and the relay, an RP2040. So you can control your mains operated objects with an RP2040 at the clap of your hand. Obviously safely in a nice plastic box away from prying fingers.
Yes, because
Bravo.
Clapper was the ultimate smart device. So
With the ultimate jingle.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it worked better than I was setting up my mom's smart home bulb this weekend when I changed her router and we couldn't get it working again. And I was like, she said, now I'm going to have to go all the way across the room and turn that light on and off myself. And I said, this was easier like 30 years ago when people just had to do this, right? I mean, that it should be that simple. So speaking of great projects, I know, Ash, you've been tracking our best projects of the month.
Yeah, so for those who are unfamiliar, all week long we cover Raspberry Pi projects from makers like you, and once a month we round up a list of our top 10 favorite creations. And today I'm going to share just a few of them to get you guys excited, but of course you can find the full list at tomshardware.com. I'm going to switch my screen over here. And the first thing I wanted to show you guys was this is a Game Boy Advance project, which is my personal favorite handheld, so I'm probably biased in that regard.
Ash,
yeah?
Maybe I should share my screen because yours is coming in, at least for me, a little bit blurry. So maybe, let's see. I don't know what we can do about that. Maybe I will just do a share screen and I'll show folks.
That's not any better, is it? What I just did? Here, I can send you the links. Let me send you the links.
Okay.
But the first thing I wanted to show you guys that Avram is going to pull up here is this Game Boy Advance. I sent you StreamYard on accident.
Oops, actually we need this. We need December. Or we need this month.
Sorry, I'm on a Manjaro laptop and it's got an extra key that.
Okay,
so the control is supposed to be.
So here, to look at this.
There we go. Okay, so it's a Game Boy Advance, and we've got a Raspberry Pi that's being used to play games using RetroPie on the Game Boy Advance. So not only is it outputting video to the screen, but it is accepting button input. So you can play, theoretically, you can play a PlayStation 1 game on your Game Boy Advance with this project.
Wow, that's really neat.
Yeah, that one's really cool.
What else do we have?
Okay, this next one I'm sending to you now. Okay, this one I found it's really nostalgic. It's a CRT TV wall, and every TV has a Raspberry Pi attached to it, and they work in tandem to display one video across all of the screens, so they act like one big TV. And I really like that it's using old hardware. I've got some old CRTs hanging around, and it just makes me want to connect some Pis to them. But it looks like something from an old movie from the 90s, and I had to show off that one. It's too cool.
Oh, speaking of old movies, not to distract too much, but maybe a little bit. I was at the office, and I asked this both of our audience who's on with us and of our guests and hosts. Have you seen the movie War Games?
Yes.
I believe so. Not recently though.
So it came up. That in our in-person office yesterday, I was talking about a keyboard that I had just reviewed, which, by the way, is a good keyboard to use with your Raspberry Pi. And I'll show in a second, just to show what I'm talking about. And I said, typing on it looks and feels like the keyboard that Matthew Broderick uses in War Games, and like all the millennials and Gen Z folks I work with had never watched War Games. They said, although they knew that the only way to win is not to play. That's what they're like. Oh, you mean the only way to win is not to play? I was like, yeah. Did you see the movie? No, that's just all I know is that the only way to win is not to play. So anyway,
it's a great movie.
And Matthew Broderick uses a great computer, which is was a real kit computer at the time. I'm sorry, Ash. What else did you want to show?
I'm showing off this one totally not because of our guest or anything, but this might be the smallest robot that we've ever covered, and it's built on top of the tiny 2040. It's got two tiny 3-volt geared DC motors, and it's just super tiny, and it's super cool. So that's the other one I had to share with you guys.
That is awesome, that one.
Is it the smallest robot you've ever seen? Because it's Smallest one I've come across.
Yeah.
That is definitely the smallest I have seen.
They're driving
Yeah.
the motors directly from the GPIO pins.
Yeah,
It's like, wow.
that's great. I mean, that's so much. That's so much fun. Yes, Russell is right. Some of my coworkers need a forced viewing. So listen. Last year we had Andrew, one of our editors, had said he'd never seen Die Hard, so I bought him the Blu-ray. He said, I've seen a lot of movies like this already. Anyway, before we go, I wanted to share this keyboard with you all because it is Raspberry Pi related in the sense that it's a good keyboard to have if you're working with Pis. So this here is an Akko 3098 wireless keyboard, 3098B. It's available on the Akko website for $109. The reason why I say that it is good for if you have a Raspberry Pi is that it supports 3, or if you get the N version, 4 Bluetooth profiles along with a wired and a 2.4 gigahertz connection, and it switches between them within like a second or less. So if you have a Pi and you're not, using VNC to get into it or whatever, and you just want to use the same keyboard for your PC and maybe 2 or 3 Raspberry Pis at the same time, and maybe your phone or your laptop or whatever, it's great to be able to have a keyboard that you can just kind of toggle among different profiles. Or let's say you have like 3 different Raspberry Pis and you've paired it. You don't want to have to repair it each time you're using a different one. You can assign the profiles to it. And this is a fantastic typing experience. It comes with these what are called ASA keycaps, which to me look like old school terminal caps. They got the kind of the curve on them, and you have things like the Alt and the Win key or whatever are spelled out and are all caps. So it just has that like old school look and feel. And then the other thing is the switches are hot swappable. So let's say the switches that it comes with, you have a choice of like Akko's switches, which their jelly whites are, feel nice and clacky, but they're not clicky, they're linears. So if you're like me and you really prefer, not to get into keyboard geekdom here too much, but you really prefer like one of these, Kale box white switches, you can easily pull the switches out, which I did on this one, and put in your own switches. So it also has RGB for those who want RGB. And the other thing I like about it is it gives you your numpad, but it's a very small 96% compact keyboard. So it's almost the width of a 10 keyless. So anyway, and pretty long battery life. So you can get it at Akko's website, depending on what country you're in. I think you can find it there. It's sold under different brands, but mainly under Akko, but I think Apple Maker also sells it. Anyway, if you go to Akko, AKKO, their website, you'll find it. And of course, we have a full review of it on Tom's Hardware. Didn't mean to turn this into a keyboard show, but I just wanted to mention that because I know one of the things is when you're using Raspberry Pi and you're working on projects, you want to be able to have a wireless keyboard that switches easily among different systems without having to repair them and plug and unplug. And so, and you can actually get a really good typing experience out of it. The only thing I wish it had for Raspberry Pi, but this is not something you normally see, I wish it had a pointing device, like a nice little track point in the middle would be really cool, but that's just not done very often. So what can you say? Anyway, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to thank Phil so much for joining us and sharing this amazing new product.
My pleasure.
And all the great things that are going on in Pimoroni. We are here every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. UK time, 2:30 p.m. US Eastern time. And you can always find us on YouTube and Facebook. We will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.